Hospitals change your sense of time. Days don't move forward. They blur. Everything becomes measured in tests, waiting rooms, and the sound of footsteps in the hallway. By the time they brought the paper, I had already lost track of what day it was. I remember the room more than the date, the pale walls, the steady hum of machines, the smell of disinfectant that never quite fades. I was sitting up in bed, propped by pillows, trying to focus on breathing evenly. A nurse had just left. She smiled and told me to rest. Then the door opened again. It was my son. He didn't come alone. A man I didn't recognize walked in behind him, well-dressed, calm, holding a thin folder. They both smiled, not rushed, not tense, like this was a normal visit. My son said they didn't want to bother me for long, just a few minutes. The man introduced himself, said he was there to help us organize things. He spoke softly, carefully, as if volume itself could be tiring. I nodded. Talking felt like work. The man stood near the bed, not too close, not too far. He explained that there were documents we should take care of while everything was fresh, that it would avoid problems later, that it was better not to wait. I remember thinking that everything about that sentence felt misplaced. Fresh, later, better not to wait. I was wearing a hospital bracelet, and the fourth was taped to my arm. Nothing felt fresh. I asked if it could wait. The man smiled again. Said it could, but that it might be harder, that timing mattered. That it would be simpler now. Simple. Another word meant to end questions. My son stood quietly, letting the man speak. That felt intentional, as if authority was being borrowed. The folder opened. Pages slid out. Clean, neatly stacked. They didn't look threatening. They looked official. The man explained where to sign, not what it meant. Just where. He said we could go through everything later, that this was just a formality. I felt pressure behind my eyes. Not from anyone pushing, from the effort of staying alert. Hospitals make you passive. You wait. You follow instructions. You trust uniforms and titles. The man wasn't wearing a lab coat, but he spoke with the same certainty. I hesitated. I remember that. A pause. My son noticed. He said it was okay, that this would help, that it was for my benefit. I asked if it affected my treatment. They said no. If it affected my care, they said no. Those were the only questions I had the energy to ask. I signed. My hand shook. The pen felt heavier than usual. The paper rested on a tray meant for meals, a place where food should be. Not legal authority. When I finished, the man thanked me, collected the papers, closed the folder. That was it. No discussion. No explanation. They stayed a few minutes longer, talked about the doctor, about how I was doing. Then they left. The room felt emptier after. Not quieter, emptier. I stared at the spot where the papers had been, trying to remember what I had agreed to, but my thoughts slipped away. A nurse came back in, asked how I was feeling. I said tired. She adjusted my fore, asked me to rest. So I did. That's the part that stays with me. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I didn't even fully understand. I complied. Because in that room, compliance felt like the safest option. I didn't know then that the timing wasn't accidental, that the hospital wasn't a coincidence. It was the moment when resistance was lowest, and they knew it. If you think stories like this should be told, you can support the channel by liking this video. If you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. A new episode every day. Cool doesn't always mean fair.